Students, today we're going to talk about a new grammar called conditionals. Some of you probably have studied some of these before, but we're going to talk about some more advanced conditionals that are probably new. So to start, I'd like you to do a little bit of a warm-up. I'd like you to imagine that I'm going to go to your hometown in the future. And you can tell me, if you go to my hometown, tell me something that I should see, something that I've got to try, maybe like a special food, something that I should make sure not to miss, and something I should visit, etc. So you can take a moment to pause the video while you write down your answers, and then I'm going to give you some examples in just a moment. Okay, so here are the examples, right? I'm from Chicago, so my hometown is Chicago. If you go to my hometown, you should see Millennium Park, right? It's a beautiful park with a lot of fun activities to do there. If you go to my hometown, you've got to try Chicago pizza, right? It's really delicious, right? If you go to my hometown, don't miss the Willis Tower, right? It's one of our biggest tourist attractions, right? Okay, so this is just to show you that you know conditionals already. You probably use them a lot in your everyday life. We're going to review a couple of the conditionals that you already know and then talk about two new conditionals that are going to be very useful for our next essay. So let's break down the title, conditionals, right? It has this word condition, but what is a condition, right? A condition is something that has to be met. We usually use it by introducing it with an if clause. So if means on this condition, or only on this condition, okay? If your brother can borrow my car. On what condition would I let your brother borrow my car? Maybe if he has a driver's license. So if he has a driver's license, your brother can borrow my car. If he doesn't have a driver's license, no way, he can't borrow my car. Number 2, I will pass this class if I do well on the last 2 essays, right? On that condition, if I do well on the last 2 essays, I will pass this class, okay? So the important thing to remember here is that a conditional is composed of 2 main parts. It has a condition that begins with an if it rains, and then it also has a result clause. I will stay at home. Both of these are types of clauses, the condition clause and also the result clause. So each of them needs to have a separate subject and a separate verb for each one. I have a couple more sentences here. I'd like you to read them and decide which one is correct. You can pause the video while you think about it. Okay, so if you said that actually both are correct, then you are right. Good job. What is the difference between the 2 sentences? Well, there's no difference in meaning, right? They mean the same thing exactly, but there is a difference in punctuation. The if clause is actually a dependent clause, right? Just like the time clauses and the adverb clauses and the noun clauses that we talked about, an if clause is a dependent clause. So when the if clause is first in the sentence, we will add a comma. However, in number 2, the if clause or the dependent clause is second in the sentence. Therefore, we don't need a comma here. All right, so in conditionals, there are actually 4 types of conditionals. We know 2 of these pretty well. 2 of them are new, but I'd like to give you an example of each of these 4 types of conditionals, and I'd like you to do a noticing activity. In this activity, as you read the sentences, I'd like you to think about what is the difference. Notice the difference between the sentences, and I'll give you some guidelines here. First, I'd like you to notice the time. When does each sentence happen? Is it talking about the past, the present, or the future? And then secondly, possibility. Is the sentence real? Is it possible that this will happen, right? Is it possible that it will rain, that it rains? Is it possible that it rains this weekend? Or is it unreal? Is it impossible or imaginary? An example of an unreal or impossible situation might be something like, if I had $1 million, right? I'm a teacher, right? I don't have $1 million, like for sure I don't, right? So that is an impossible or imaginary situation. It's not real. It's not possible that I'm going to get $1 million tomorrow, right? Okay, so again, read the sentences, try to think about these 3 questions. Okay, so this time I'm actually not going to give you the answers because I'm going to talk about the 4 types of conditionals. And I hope by the end of this video, you'll be able to identify which type of conditional each one is. Okay, so we actually have 4 types of conditionals, and they're used to describe different things. They also use different verb tenses in the if clause, as you can see, and different verb tenses in the result clause, okay? This is a really nice chart that I have for you on D2L, so you can look at it and analyze it a bit more closely on there. But for our purposes right now, I'm going to break it down into more manageable chunks and go little by little. So the first conditionals that we'll talk about are the 0 conditional and the first conditional. The 0 conditional talks about situations that are always true. So this could be a habit that you have that you always do. It could also be a fact, something that is always true for everybody, right? Here's an example. If it rains, I take a taxi to the train station, right? So for this person, this is always true. Every time it rains or whenever it rains, this person always takes a taxi to the train station. The verb tenses that we're using here are present simple in the if clause. If it rains, present simple, and present simple in the result clause. I take a taxi. So when we see present simple in both clauses, we know that this is a situation that is always true. The first conditional talks about situations that can really happen in the future. The key word here is future, right? I like to think about this and differentiate it from 0 conditional because a 0 conditional is always true, but a first conditional might only be true for one situation in the future, So for example, if it rains tomorrow, I will take a taxi to the train station. Here we're talking about one situation in the future, only tomorrow, if it rains tomorrow, okay? In this situation, we're going to use present simple in the if clause, if it rains, and future in the result clause. I will take, right? So that future will. Okay, so these are the 2 conditionals that I think that you guys know already pretty well. I've seen them in your writing. I've heard you use them in your speaking. So I have some practice for you, just a little bit. I'd like you to try to finish the sentences in your own way. And you're going to either finish them with present simple if you think it's a situation that is always true, like a habit or a fact, or you can use future simple if it's a situation that can really happen in the future, like a specific time in the future. For some of the sentences, you might be able to use both, but it will change the meaning. Okay, so pause the video while you think about it, and I'll give you the answers in just a moment. All right, students, so here are some answers. If she passes English 090, she will take English 101 in the summer. Without a doubt, this is just a specific event in the future, right? This only happens one time. She doesn't pass English 090 all the time, right? It's not a habit. So we have to use first conditional here, future. Number 2, if I feel tired in the morning, we can actually have 2 answers here, but it changes the meaning. If I feel tired in the morning, I have a cup of coffee. Using present simple in the result clause tells me that this is a 0 conditional, meaning that this is a habit. If I feel tired in the morning, I always have a cup of coffee. That always helps me, right? I could also use future, but it changes the meaning. If I feel tired in the morning, I will have a cup of coffee. So maybe I'm staying up very late tonight. And I'm thinking about, oh, am I going to feel tired tomorrow? Maybe. But if I feel tired tomorrow morning, I will have a cup of coffee and I'll be fine. Okay. So both are grammatically correct, but again, they change the meaning. Okay, the last one is number 3. Again, we can have two answers. Now you think about, how does each answer change the meaning here? If my teacher gives me homework, I do it right away. That means that's my habit. Every time my teacher gives me homework, I do it right away every time, right? A situation that's always true. Or if my teacher gives me homework tonight, I will do it right away. This tells me it's a specific situation in the future, just one time. Okay, so I hope that's helpful in just reviewing what we know a little bit about these two conditionals. I'm going a little bit quickly over them because I think we've learned them before, but if you ever have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Here's a new one for you. It's called the second conditional, and it's also called the present unreal conditional. It's present because the situation happens in the present, but it's unreal because the situation is not true in the present. And an example of this is, if I were taller. Is it possible for me to be taller? No, right? I'm at an age where I cannot grow taller. I can probably only grow shorter at my age. So that's not possible. It is unreal, right? And I'm also talking about the present. If I were taller right now, right? This one is confusing a little bit because even though it's talking about the present, in the if clause, we use past simple. If I were taller, if I had a lot of money, right? Etc. In the result clause, we're going to use would and then the verb. The verb is just going to be verb base. So no verb tense for it. Would and then verb base. And then here we use past, right? If it were raining. Let's look at a few more examples. You can pause the video. Notice that each of these has past in the if clause. So in the result clause, you're going to add would and verb base. Subject, would, and verb base for your answer. I'm going to give you some example answers in just a moment, so please pause the video. All right, example answers. If I had a lot of money, I would donate it to people who have lost their jobs, right? If I had a lot of money right now, I know a lot of people have lost their jobs right now. I feel terribly for them. I would donate it to those people. Number 2, if John were taller, notice the past here were, he could play in the NBA. Notice here I'm changing would to could because I want to talk about the ability, right? And number 3, if I gave my students a lot of homework, they would be so sad. So I don't think I will. But I can imagine if I gave my students a lot of homework, how they would feel. Okay? So I hope that gives you a little bit of practice. I know that you're going to need more practice. So on the next slide, I have some more practice for you. If you want to take note of this chart, this might be helpful, especially thinking about past for the if clause and would plus verb for the result clause. That will really help you in the next slide. So here's just a little bit of practice. You can pause the video and finish the sentences in your own way. I'm actually not going to give you the answers, so if you would like to check your answers, please email them to me, and I'm happy to check them for you. Okay, so I hope you've paused the video or taken a screenshot of that so you can practice. We're going to move right along to our very last conditional. This is the third conditional. We also call it the past unreal conditional. Obviously, this one happens in the past, right? But it is unreal because it is imaginary. It is imagining changing the past, which is kind of crazy, right? Think about it like one of those movies like Back to the Future, where they think about how could I change the past, right? And how would that have changed other things? What would the effect be? In the third conditional, we use past perfect in the if clause. If it had rained. Past perfect is had and verb 3, right? Rained. So rain, rained, rained. If it had rained. And then we use would have, always have, would have, and then verb. I would have taken. I would have taken a taxi to the train station. If it had rained, I would have taken a taxi to the train station. Okay? So I want to give you a little bit of a story to imagine this one, because to me, this is kind of the most difficult one. So right before spring break, I was running late to my morning class and I was really stressing about it. I got to the faculty parking lot and I realized, oh my gosh, there are no parking spots. All of the parking spots were taken because I came a little bit later than I usually do. So I was kind of freaking out until I saw the most magical parking spot and it was right near the entrance. So I was super pumped and I thought, oh, I'll make it to my class on time. So I pulled my car in, grabbed my bag, and ran inside, right? I was so pleased with myself the entire day because I had found that magical parking spot. But when I came out to my car at the end of the day in the evening, I saw a ticket on my car. Can you imagine? So I was super confused. Why do I have a ticket? I'm a faculty, right? I'm in the faculty lot. And I was super confused until I saw the sign. Reserved parking, low emitting and fuel efficient vehicles only. Now, my old Subaru is not a low emitting or fuel efficient vehicle, unfortunately. So I understand why I got the ticket now. Okay. So while I was standing at my car, I had two thoughts, and I'd like to know from you which one is correct, A or B. You can pause the video while you read them and think about them. Okay, so if I hadn't parked in this spot, I wouldn't have gotten a ticket, right? This one is true. This is correct, right? I'm imagining, what if I hadn't parked in this spot? Yes, I wouldn't have gotten a ticket. And letter B, if I had parked in any other spot except for this one that was reserved parking, I wouldn't have gotten a ticket. Both are actually correct, right? So if you said both, good job. Okay, the biggest thing to remember with the third conditional is that it talks about regret. We often use it to talk about something that we regret about the past or we wish had happened or didn't happen, right? If I had parked in another spot, I wouldn't have gotten a ticket. Now, the questions in purple ask you about the truth. What is the truth? Did I park in another spot? Did I park in another spot? No, I parked in the reserve spot. And did I get a ticket? Yes, I got a ticket. Notice that the imaginary situation, if this one is positive, the reality is negative. Did I park in another spot? No, but this one is positive. And this one here has not, so it's negative, but the reality, did I get a ticket? Yes, is positive. So it's always the opposite, which makes it very confusing, I think. Here's another example, and I have the third conditional chart up here for you. In black, I have the truth. And then in orange, I have the conditional sentence. Let's read. My sister called me last night while I was cooking. I burned the chicken because I wasn't paying attention to it. If my sister hadn't called, I wouldn't have burned the chicken. Now, what is the truth? Did my sister call from the sentence? If my sister hadn't called, right? This is negative, so change it to positive. Did my sister call? Yes, she did, right? But I'm imagining if my sister hadn't called, I'm regretting her calling. Did I burn the chicken? This one's negative, so we change it to positive. Did I burn the chicken? Yes, I did. Look at how angry I am. Okay, so again, we can see another situation where third conditional is used to talk about something, to change something in the past. Here's one more, and I'd like you to pause the video. You can use the chart up here. Remember, the if clause uses past perfect. The result clause uses would have plus verb. This is the real situation in black. This is the conditional. Try to finish the conditional by yourself. Okay, so here's the answer. If I had not gone or hadn't gone to Prague, I wouldn't have met my husband. If I hadn't gone to Prague, I wouldn't have met my husband. Well, lucky for me, I did go to Prague and I did meet my husband. All right, so the big thing to remember here is that third conditional is used to change the past, but that is impossible, as we all know, right? Time travel is not really a thing, unfortunately. I have a few more sentences here for you that you can practice with. Again, if you'd like to check your answers, you can email me your sentences and I will check them for you. Other than that, you guys are free to go. I hope this is helpful. You can watch it as many times as you need to as you continue with the homework. Okay.